exam. My name is Jennifer Markovich, and I teach at John F. Kennedy High School in Navy, Maryland. I'm really excited to help you figure out how to be successful and reach for that 5 on the AP exam. Today we're going to start by talking about the first FRQ, 20 minutes, what we have scheduled for allotted time on the exam out of 100 for the FRQ section, and that is a concept application. We're going to be looking at bureaucratic discretion as well as how to accomplish this lovely FRQ. Now is a great time to pause the video to go grab the PDF copy of the question, pen, paper, snack, something to drink, and we'll get through this in 15 minutes or so. The very first place I like to check in with my students is just to remind them where the points lie on the task. So we have 3 points and 3 tasks. Our point A, we always want to identify the actor or action that's being queried in our stimulus, as well as describe, using the context of the scenario, not just a fancy way of saying, can you pull down information from that stimulus into your answer to show, not tell, but show through description where you see these things happening. B point, again, we want to identify actor or action because it's going to shift, right? Our subject is going to shift here. And here it gets a little more complex. We're explaining how or why those actions relate to whatever you talked about in part A. C, our final point, is very similar to B. We're looking at an interaction between that scenario and the content. You're looking, again, to clearly identify the new subject, actor or action, and explain how, that's steps in the process. Think about how you might answer the question, how do I make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Or why, that is more substantive, so think why would I make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? So again, explain how or why course content relates to the scenario. Some things to remember, again, CAFRQ is worth 3 points.
The best place for creators to make money in the creator economy is Kajabi.
You don't need a huge following. You want to use active voice. So here, if you're not really familiar with active versus passive voice is going to clearly identify who the subject is and what action they're taking. So the subject and the verb. An example would be Congress legislated. Instead of saying legislation occurred, we don't know who did it. We can't say what's happening in that scenario. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure we're clear who the actor is and what their action is. We also want to make sure we're using proper nouns from the scenario, not pronouns, not he, she, they, right? We're all great with pronouns, they're wonderful, but when we're writing and trying to convey information, it's really difficult for a reader to figure out when there's multiple actors who you're referencing. So we want to reach for those proper nouns. So we want to say something like President so-and-so, or Speaker of the House so-and-so, and that should be there in the stimulus to help us. We want to use information from the scenario to illustrate, especially when you see in the phrase in the context of the scenario. So that's telling us, hey, you've got to use beautiful, exquisite detail that comes from that stimulus. We should see those proper nouns popping up. We should see some reference, a passage maybe, a summary of a passage, a paraphrase of a passage from the stimulus to show where we see that action or activity taking place. Finally, when the scenario is new to you, you are not expected to have ever heard of the situation before, but I guarantee you that you have all of the information that you need to be able to successfully accomplish. It's about applying what you know to a novel situation and use it. So here is an example. Take a moment to pause and just to read through what you have going on here. In a moment, I'm going to take a minute to go through what I see from the page, kind of give you an example of how you might accomplish this. So pause that video, read the stimulus, read the tasks, the A, B, and C, and then we'll figure out how to tackle this together.
Si quieren ir al grupo está bien, y si te enojan no pasa nada. Okay.
Con aire fuerte.
Aquí no te llega mi idea. Así está bien.
All right, so you're back. Let's see what we might do. So the very first thing that I see is we have to describe an informal power. So I want to search, where do I see power being exercised? And I see it being exercised here. So I like to, because we can't annotate passages that are given to us in our test booklet, I like to just draw a circle around where I think that A point lies on the page. And here it has to do with something with speeches, Kennedy's proposal, the New York Times, something along those lines. So I've got a clue here, and I don't want to give it away, that it has something to do with what the president is doing with their speech that is going to be an informal power. B, right, we're looking at that context of the scenario, so we're looking for congressional oversight. So that power, we're thinking of the power here that could be used in Part A that's going to have an impact on congressional oversight. So even though the topic here is John F. Kennedy, we are taking a look at what Dwight Eisenhower is doing, signing a law. So while Congress isn't explicitly on the page, we know that because of the presentment clause in Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution, that it had to go through Congress first. So Congress is in the background. They're not on the page, but they're doing something, and so they're going to have the ability to have oversight. We just got to think about what that might be. And then finally, we get to NASA having an impact. So we're thinking of a bureaucratic agency. We see NASA there in the first paragraph. We see NASA in the last paragraph. There's something about NASA as an independent agency. It says described in the scenario, the president's agenda in the scenario, that we might have to go outside of the scenario to figure out what that implementation might look like. So we have question marks there. So just to remember, you want to come, the next thing I would do when I'm thinking about how I'm going to answer this question is, what do I know about the policymaking process? It's complex. It has a lot of different actors involved. I know that Congress, like I said, Congress isn't explicitly referenced in the stimulus, but nothing can come to the president. The president can't take action on bills unless it's gone through Congress first. We know that Congress has to introduce, pass a bill. They can go ahead and control it through power of the purse. They have oversight powers that are embedded and implied in the Constitution. They've got that confirmation power, and they can impeach and remove appointees as well as the president. The president, in their influencing making process, they're going to be using their power to veto. Sometimes just saying a president wants to veto a bill is enough for Congress to come correct and to change whatever it is that they're doing to fall in line. They don't want to put a lot of effort into a very popular bill if that bill is going to get vetoed in the long run. So they're going to sign bills into law. That president is. They can veto bills. If there's pocket vetoes, go back and check those things out. Go back and check back into what presidential signing statements are, executive orders. And oh my gosh, there it is. You see it. Bully pulpit, right? Bully pulpit. What is that concept? That concept of how the president uses the messaging power, maybe to the state of the union, maybe by going to publish and press, to be able to influence that policy-making process. It's like I'm giving you a hint. Finally, they appoint officials and judges. We get to the bureaucracy, and we see here we've got they're in charge of carrying out those laws. The president is not going to be tasked with carrying out the day-to-day execution of law. So they turn that over to the bureaucratic agencies to do that on their behalf, which is good. Right? Could you imagine any president trying to make decisions about how to build rockets? We don't want to do that, right? That's not what presidents are hired to do. They're not hired to be rocket scientists. The government, specifically here in this past, NASA is going to hire their rocket scientists to figure out how many engines do we need, can it be hydrogen powered or nitrogen powered, or all the things that come with building rockets. So they're going to execute laws on behalf of the president. They're going to clarify laws through bureaucratic perspectives. We see that through rulemaking process, writing regulations and other standardized procedures. Sometimes they take people to court. That's called litigation. Sometimes appointed administrators, when they disagree with the vision of the president, they will do what's called going native. And that's where they kind of will fall back on the expertise of the people who are the merit-based employees who work there that are not political appointees, right? And that is because they can do that because they sign or they declare allegiance not to the office of the president, but to the Constitution itself. And street-level bureaucrats, you're familiar with street-level bureaucrats. If you are in a classroom, you actually have a street-level bureaucrat in front of you, right? So go ahead and point them out. That street-level bureaucrat is the person whose job it is to dispense that service to the public, their clients. Finally, you have courts. Courts are going to be interpreting the Constitution and laws of the U.S. They do that to original jurisdiction. That's where we see, kinds of court cases that you see on television. If you watch Law and Order or any of those kinds of criminal procedural television shows, and then appellate jurisdiction, those rarely show up. But that's where the courts tackle questions about misapplication of law. Coming back around to this, we have a better understanding of where we might want to go. And we see here that the policymaking process is embedded in all of these questions. Let's take a look at how we might actually answer these questions now. After I put some cool stars, question marks on it. All right, so our first task is to describe the informal power of the president in the scenario. And an answer here is to go ahead and to go back and look. Remember I said proper nouns, so we want to be able to call out where we saw that. John F. Kennedy was the president, right? We want to make sure it wouldn't be enough to say the president because it's a specific president. We've got two here. So John F. Kennedy made use of the bully pulpit, which is our informal presidential power, to call the public attention to a specific key issue. In this case, the importance of space endeavors by speaking directly to the public. What I love about this answer are a couple of things. They not only identified the answer of bully pulpit as that informal power, but they defined it as well. So they earned that point. They also included specific details. Here is the importance of space endeavors. It's not a lot of information, but space isn't anywhere in that actual prompt, and it's all over the stimulus. So now I know that they're showing me where they see this important bully pulpit informative power being used in relation to the stimulus. You gotta do both to get that point. You gotta answer the question and show me where it is. In the context of the scenario, explain how the power described in Part A could have impacted congressional oversight. So the student response here is that Kennedy's use of the bully pulpit could be impacted positively by congressional oversight. Congressional oversight could have expanded funding for NASA and requested congressional hearings at a sufficient rate so Congress is constantly updated about the progress that is being made to the moon project and is able to provide any It says gas. I know that's a little bit of a typo. That's just there to remind you you don't have to perfect spell it in your grammar. If you want to say, okay. Anywho, NASA shall require it. Congress now has to progress. So the students did a great job with using that prompt, but you can see where they are turning the corner and they're identifying the congressional oversight. What I love about this is that the students are going to go back up and pull down enough information about NASA and funding to show that Congress can promote by funding it, by having hearings, so on and so forth. So great answer here. It is definitely showing how we have making it possible to accomplish this goal. Explain how NASA could have impacted communication the president's agenda described in the scenario. A lot of text here. So I know that I'm gonna read it to you, but I'm gonna tell you right up front. Some of this is gonna go way beyond what we have to do, and that's okay too. Sometimes kids get really excited about their responses. We're gonna identify where the student has accomplished the task at hand. So they say that NASA current impact is implementation of President's choice of those beautiful repetition of prompt because now they're gonna tell me their answers, they're identifying it. Bureaucrats, especially with what we're doing on high level bureaucrats, that point is flexing, right? They're not actually, you don't have to have that to earn the point. They earn the point here. Enjoy bureaucratic expression, how the policy is implemented. For example, is a signal phrase. It's letting you, the reader, know I'm about to pull the thing down from the prompt. It's really, really helpful in showing the intentionality of those things and skills that you accomplish. So, for example, expertise of engineers and technicians operating at the lowest level of bureaucracy do not possessed by those above them, leaving room for interpretation for workers to figure out aspects of the project. I'm going to pause myself here. Going on to say such as prototype building, technological instrumentation, materials used, test required. This is a student who's super excited about rocketry, which I am right there with you. However, it's not necessary, right? Because you're showing that they've got to make decisions that politics make. The hierarchical structure of bureaucracy and the president on a high level bureaucracy directly controls the carrying out of orders by workers while still accomplishing the goal of traveling. That last sentence is what earns it for them, right? They've identified and described some of the things that you might have to be able to do with bureaucratic expression. And then we explain exactly how that president is getting there, right? That hierarchical structure of bureaucracy. The president can't be involved in day-to-day management of that goal. So they need to use the bureaucrats to make that a possibility. And that, my friends, is how we answer that CAF again.